NCAA men's tournament. Arizona has a Sweet 16 matchup Thursday night against Clemson at Crypto.com. Crypto is the site of the West Regional Finals. The Clippers are expecting to have Russell Westbrook back for tonight's home game against Indiana. Westbrook missed the last 12 games with a broken left hand. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
Reparations Now has been a rallying cry in this country and around the world for decades. But the demand has taken on new urgency with growing momentum on the issue led by the state of California, which has completed an extensive study and put forth recommendations to enact reparations. California's reparations actions have huge nationwide implications. The California Task Force was the first of its kind in the nation, and the states of New York and Colorado recently voted to take on the issue. Dozens of cities from coast to coast, including San Francisco, Boston, Los Angeles, and Detroit, have started their own reparations commissions. One of the first known reparationists was Callie House, who toured the nation advocating for reparations in the 1890s. But never in this nation's history has the movement to heal the harms of enslavement, institutionalized racism, and the system of white supremacy seemed so strong. The topic remains untouchable for most elected officials, and the call for reparations has not yet garnered widespread public support. Polling shows that most Californians agree that black fellow citizens are still suffering from the damage done by slavery and Jim Crow, but they still do not support cash reparations. The California Legislative Black Caucus has introduced a package of proposals for bills that do not include 1 penny of cash compensation, restitution, or repair. Governor Newsom and other lawmakers have distanced themselves from the concept of cash payments. While Newsom is right, cash alone will not repair our collective harm, the state's goofy legislative package ignoring monetary payments is disingenuous. California lawmakers need to step up and put a reparations bill for cash payments on the table. The issue of how it is funded, the timeline, or whether it impacts our current budget challenges can be addressed. But we must strike while the iron is hot, or the window of opportunity will pass us by. If you agree that it's time for our lawmakers to add a bill enacting cash payments to their lineup, call them at 916-319-3868 and say, if it doesn't include cash, it ain't reparations. That's 916-319-3868. Tell him Callie House sent you. From Bruce's Beach to the California Task Force, the Golden State is a trailblazer when it comes to reparations. The world is watching. We must rise to the historical moment and set a precedent for cash payments along with legislative remedies and policies addressing the systemic badges of slavery and Jim Crow. We must insist on measures significant enough to help close the racial wealth gap. California must stand for cash, and the time for reparations is now. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dominique DePrima. We welcome your comments.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's the TavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, former NASA engineer Harleen Kaur is the co-founder and CEO of Ground News, a new mobile app designed to fight disinformation and bias in the news. She'll tell us all about this new innovation in hour two. In our third hour,
we have two systems of justice, right? We have one for the wealthy and the well-connected and a different one for everybody else. And that's exactly what we are fighting to change. We are just getting started because we knew that fixing a system that has failed us, not just for decades, but for generations, was not the work of 1 year or one term, of one man or woman or one office. It is work that requires a sustained social movement. The movement is alive and well from coast to coast, from north to south. This is a movement, not a moment in history.
Award-winning filmmaker Robert Greenwald joins us today in hour three to talk about his latest documentary, Beyond Bars, about former San Francisco DA Chesa Boudin. You might recall that Chesa Boudin was part of the wave of progressive DAs elected all across America just a few years ago. Many of those, two progressive DAs, have since faced recalls, including Chesa Boudin, who was, in fact, removed from office in the city by the Bay. We will talk about the fascinating and intriguing life of Chesa Boudin, even well before he was elected DA, with filmmaker Robert Greenwald in hour three. In our first hour today, two more conversations. On the B side of this hour, the legendary civil rights lawyer Ben Crump is back with updates on his biggest cases and a preview of his documentary. It's called How to Sue the Klan. The documentary tells the story of 5 courageous black women in Tennessee who used legal ingenuity to take on the Klan in a historic 1982 civil case, fighting to hold the Klan accountable for their crimes and bring justice to their victims. Their victory set a legal precedent that continues this day to inspire the ongoing fight against organized hate in America. I am delighted once again to be in dialogue with our friend and brother Ben Crump on the backside of this hour. All that said, we commence today's show talking politics with our regular contributor, Ruben Navarrette Jr., whose Washington Post Syndicate column makes him the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation. He is also host of the Ruben In The Center podcast. So, Ruben, let's see if you're in the center on this one. Did NBC News make a huge mistake, a huge miscalculation when they announced on Friday that they had hired former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel? The new hire blew up in their faces over the weekend. First, McDaniel faced a pressure campaign by former President Donald Trump to resign so that the RNC could hire his daughter-in-law as part of a triumvirate to lead the committee. Then McDaniel took incoming fire all weekend from her new colleagues at NBC News, who went in hard on their network bosses for being tone deaf in the hiring of McDaniel, a Trump sycophant who, among other lies and transgressions, had refused for the longest time to publicly acknowledge that Joe Biden had actually won the election. And yet NBC News hired her anyway as a paid contributor. Of course, yesterday she changed her tune when she appeared on NBC's Meet the Press, being paid now by the network. Nonetheless, put simply, her appearance was a disaster for the network. The former host of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, excoriated his NBC bosses in an unprecedented live appearance on the network. You have to hear this for yourself. This is Chuck Todd on NBC talking about his NBC bosses.
Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News?
Strong words from NBC's Chuck Todd. When we come forward, we will unpack that and two pieces of breaking news right now. Donald Trump, according to an appellate court, can in fact post a smaller bond. In his New York fraud case, he escapes once again. And the UN Security Council has passed a resolution for an immediate Gaza ceasefire with, guess who, abstaining? Now, you already guessed it, the United States. More when we come forward on Tavis Smile.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Now I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Attorney Joe Cordell. Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ruben Navarrette Jr. As I said, there's a whole lot to talk about in these few minutes. There's breaking news. In case you've just tuned in, Donald Trump has been told by an appellate court he can, in fact, reduce that bond he has to pay in the New York fraud case. This is the case brought by the sister AG, Letitia James. The bond was initially set at $454. He can now reduce that down to like $172, $175, which he can do. He was going to have an impossible time today, his lawyers told us a week ago, posting that $454. But once again, he slippery like a whatever. That now gets reduced significantly, and we are told that Mr. Trump can in fact do the $172, the $175, and so we expect that to happen. He has 10 days to do that. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And there's breaking news inside the UN Security Council with the U.S. abstaining. Go figure. The UN Security Council has finally passed an immediate ceasefire resolution, which is legally binding. We'll talk about that before we let Ruben go as well. I suspect these issues may come up throughout the program today, but they're breaking news at this hour. But we start with NBC News. Ruben, let me just keep my questions brief to make the most of our time. It looks to me like NBC News stepped into a pile of you-know-what yesterday. How do you read it?
My brother, good to be with you again. This is really on NBC News. It's not my job to save them from themselves. It sounds like they made a problematic decision, one that you could predict ahead of time was going to cause exactly this kind of reaction from other NBC folks and journalists. And here's the main reason why. When you work for the RNC or the DNC, when you're a press secretary for a Democrat or a Republican, you're paid to spin the media. You're paid to lie to the media. And ultimately, this is what Ronna McDaniel has done in years past. So they're not saying it out loud. I don't know, maybe they are saying it out loud. But the reason they feel she has no credibility is because part of her job description has been to mislead the very people that she's now working with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that instantly raises a credibility issue. One last point on this. I'm very bipartisan on this. As you know, Ruben In The Center, I have been lied to and I have been spun by many Democrats who at the White House press secretary level or the head of the DNC level. This is a bipartisan thing. This is just how people in politics treat the media, which is kind of like a baby treats a diaper.
Speaking of the media, I am more and more bothered the longer I stay in this field by this notion of both sidesism. That's what I'd call it, both sidesism, where the media feels this penchant, and it's always the left much more so than the right. You don't see Fox News bending over backwards to hire a bunch of progressive commentators. They just don't do it. They don't care about it. But MSNBC and CNN, all these sort of, I'm putting this in air quotes, they ain't that left, but these left-leaning news outlets bend over backwards to engage this notion of both sidesism. In the case of Ms. McDaniel, to the point that Chuck made, I think pretty powerfully yesterday, I've had my issues with Chuck, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. And I like Chuck personally, but I've been on Meet the Press more times than I can count, going all the way back to the Tim Russell era, the king of the Sunday morning talk shows. So I'm no fan to that set at NBC in Washington. But this notion of feeling this penchant to represent both sides when one side is flat out lying to you. It's one thing to be spun. I take your point. It's their job to try to spin you to understand their point of view, to pull you to their side. But these flat out lies, just denying that Biden was in fact elected as the president of these United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As I said earlier, this Trump sycophancy that she's been engaged in for quite some time now automatically disqualifies her, to my mind, from being a credible analyst, journalist at a major news network. And I think Chuck is right. NBC News gave its journalistic integrity, whatever it has left, to her by allowing her to come on the inside. But what is this both sidesism that liberals feel the need to always accommodate?
Well, it's important to note in this case that, you were probably the first person to ever show me a rating sheet when we used to host radio together in Los Angeles. And you've seen many rating sheets with regard to how the television networks are doing. MSNBC and CNN typically get clobbered by Fox News in every time slot. And ultimately, the reason that Fox News doesn't feel inclined to bend over backward, as you say, is not just because of a different idea of fairness, but because they feel they don't need to fix something that's not broken. But at MSNBC and CNN, clearly there's this sense that we need to try something different because we don't have those kinds of ratings. This may be the wrong thing, but clearly if you want to know why they do things like this, they are of the opinion, increasingly, that what they're doing isn't working, hasn't worked, and so they do something like this. And again, it could well be the wrong thing. But I do want to push back a little bit and say that as someone who has been lied to by many Democrats, many people who work for Democrats, many elected officials who are Democrats and liberals, they can lie with the best of them. And I think I have a problem, for instance, with MSNBC hiring Jen Psaki, the former White House press secretary for Joe Biden. And that was another transition that was rather smooth. Everybody at MSNBC loved Jen Psaki, welcomed her in. There were time and again when she was talking about Biden policies that she misled the press. You can say it nicely and say she misled or maybe she lied. But again, that was her job. I don't fault her for doing her job in that context. But when she comes over to work on our side of the fence, it's going to be problematic. And the only difference is Psaki's a Democrat and McDaniel is a Republican, and in politics and media, that makes all the difference.
I take your point that Democrats are no more perfect than Republicans. I take your point about that, but I do disagree. You pushed on me, and let me push back on you. I think there is a distinct difference. I'm not a fan of either, and because my meter is pretty good, I can sense this stuff a mile away after being at it for a long time, as can you. We've been at this for decades now. We can smell that nonsense when we know it from a mile away. But at the end of the day, there's a distinct difference to my mind between trying to spin somebody on your side than flat out lying. What Ms. McDaniel has done for a few years now, is to absolutely lie. When you deny what the election data tell us, that is lying. That's not spinning, Ruben.
Yeah, and I understand, there's a difference, but spinning somebody is to mislead them. Ultimately, there's many cases where the primary themselves, the President Joe Biden has lied about immigration policy. President Barack Obama before him lied on live television to Jorge Ramos when he claimed that no Dreamers were being deported. And Ramos had to pull up a video of a Dreamer who was in Mexico waving to the president, okay? So first is everybody lies. Ruben got to be in the center because at some point, brother, I just couldn't tell the two parties apart anymore. I just couldn't. And that's where I stand because they are very, very similar. This is ultimately MSNBC's problem. It was going to be a problem. But as I said, the reason they felt they had to roll the dice on this is because nothing else is working. They have a bunch of liberals on these panels that don't have – it's 10 people on the panel who none of whom like Trump, all of whom, disagree with Trump. It gets boring and predictable. I don't even watch those shows because it's not that I don't agree with what they're saying about Trump. I often do. But challenge me, surprise me, be unpredictable.
Yep. I think it was a tone-deaf decision. I am sad to report in this instance that there's a black woman who actually runs MSNBC. You may or may not know that. A black woman, a sister, runs MSNBC, made history being the sister running MSNBC, but she's taking on the chin today. This is a horrible decision by NBC News and MSNBC to hire Ms. McDaniel, who has distinguished herself as being far less than honest, to now all of a sudden have the credibility of a news network to sit and not just spin, but lie. I digress.
Well, Tavis, Tavis, I know we're going to tell the topics here, but one reason I don't watch the 5 on Fox News is because I got tired of looking at 5 people who all said the same thing. All different shades of people criticizing Democrats, all different shades of people defending Donald Trump. And so clearly, from the point of view of being unpredictable, I'm bipartisan on this. I think that there's an argument to be said that you don't want to have shows that are predictably left or right because the viewer tunes out, and ultimately, so they brought her in. Now, the problem is she really going to even voice those Republican talking points? Or, as Chuck Todd said in that clip, is she just going to say what the folks who are paying her check want her to say?
Yeah, but I disagree with one of your points. We disagree on one thing, and that is I don't think the viewers tune out. You may have tuned out to that, but the viewers don't tune out, and that's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem with our media right now is that we have media for the left and we have media for the right, and you and I both know this.
100%,
and so, folk on the left watch MSNBC and CNN. Folk on the right watch Fox News, and everybody's being spun. Here we go now. Everybody's being spun by somebody, and it is disturbing. Our second hour, as a matter of fact, I should mention right quick, shameless plug here. Our second hour is with a woman named Harleen Cower. She's a former NASA engineer, and she's the founder of a new app called a mobile app called Ground News. And it's fascinating how this algorithm works, which helps to fight disinformation ideas and news bias. We'll tell you about that and how it works in our second hour. Perfect timing for her to be on this program today. We'll do that in hour 2. She can help you avoid some of the spin and avoid some of the lies with the way this new algorithm, this new app works. We'll discuss that once again in hour 2. In the 6 minutes I have left, let me move to these other issues I want to cut right. Not so fast. I promised I would do this. I mentioned earlier I love Chuck Todd. I've been on with Chuck 1,000 times. We're friends. And yet I've told Chuck this to his face. My problem with Chuck Todd as of yesterday, seeing his outrage about them hiring Ms. McDaniel, I just want to remind Chuck and all my friends in the media that they helped to create Donald Trump. When Chuck was hosting Meet the Press, let's just call it what it is, he gave Donald Trump a pass. He let Donald Trump on that show whenever he wanted to. Donald Trump could be in the bathroom on his cell phone. And Chuck was so anxious for the booking, they would let Donald Trump call into Meet the Press. Unprecedented. Nobody's ever done that. If you're Bernie Sanders, you got to show up. You got to be on a satellite feed. If you're Trump, you can call in from the backseat of your car on a cell phone. Anything to get you on the air, they bent over backwards, Chuck Todd and everybody else, to accommodate Donald Trump. And NBC, by the way, this is the network that made him. You're fired. That's NBC. This is NBC, the network that made Donald Trump And it's just fascinating for me to watch them.
Ironic.
Yeah, all these journalists up in arms about hiring McDaniel when y'all are the ones who made Donald Trump who he is.
Fair point.
I just wanted to make that point and leave it where it is.
Love it. Tavis in the center.
No. Tavis just trying to tell the truth. On the left, unapologetic and progressive, but trying to tell the truth nonetheless. NBC News made Donald Trump. All right, we got 3 minutes left here. Let me get your take right quick on this federal appellate decision that Donald Trump now has that 454 reduced to the low 170s, and we're told that he can actually do that. He's got 10 days to do it, but once again, Donald Trump escapes his empire falling apart, at least not today.
You said before, he's slippery. He's like slippery like a greased pig. He's ultimately, another sort of mixed metaphors, like a cat, he always lands on his feet. You know, even apart from this judgment reduction, which is amazing for him and significant for him, there's also the potential windfall from Truth Social going public, his website and social media site. So here's the point. I think Democrats and critics of Trump are playing a very dangerous game, and they need to be careful. While it may give some people immediate satisfaction to pile on to Trump, seize his apartment in Trump Tower, he can't pay the $450. If this ultimately results in more public sympathy for Trump and he gets elected, we're all going to rue the day. Okay? That is the big game. The big game is not whether he pays half the post $450 or $175 million or whatever. It's does he go to the White House or not? And if, in fact, these tactics seem excessive to some folks and it backfires, then I'm against them because I don't want to see Donald Trump back in the White House.
Yep. And my final point, again, we'll talk about this, I suspect, more later in the show and certainly over the week. We'll talk more about this judgment being reduced over the next 10 days. He has time to make the payment. We'll talk more about this decision today in the UN. But your take right quick on the UN Security Council finally passing an immediate ceasefire resolution in Gaza, but doing so only because the U.S. abstained.
Yeah. Israel doesn't care what the UN says, and increasingly Israel doesn't care what the U.S. says. The UN has passed dozens of resolutions condemning Israel, calling it a racist and apartheid state going back 40 years, 50 years. And ultimately, Israel feels like it needs to finish the mission in Rafah. It's going to do that. The UN resolution ultimately is meaningless. What's significant is the abstention by the United States, which is clearly on its last nerve. Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu are on Joe Biden's and the administration's last nerve, and this proves it. This is a sign of things to come. You're going to see this schism between the U.S. and Israel grow.
Yeah. As we say in the hood, not just my last nerve, my reserve nerve. You on my reserve nerve. And when you see Chuck Schumer a week or so ago, the highest-ranking Jewish official in this country, Jewish elected official in this country, come out as strong as he did against Bibi and say it's time for us to be elections. It's time for new leadership in Israel. To Ruben's point, they're not just on the reserve nerve, the last nerve. They're on the reserve nerve, and yet it's worth underscoring.
I disagree with that. I don't want anybody misinterpreting. I disagree with what you said. I do not think it's time for new elections in Israel. They have had like 5 elections in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the Israelis have to choose their leader.
I didn't say that. Chuck Schumer did, but I agree with Chuck Schumer, so you and I disagree again.
And
I agree with Schumer.
Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, I got you. I think it's time for new leadership, and Bibi is not the answer to the prayer. He's just not the answer to the prayer. And I digress on that point. But I will tell you this very quickly. The fascinating part for me, you mentioned earlier that it doesn't matter what the UN says, Israel's going to move forward doing what they think they need to do.
Yep.
I think you're probably right about that. Another thing that it doesn't matter what we say as the U.S. is what we do. We keep saying that Bibi is no longer the man, time for him to step aside, but we keep sending them weapons. So, again, the UN ain't the only person whose word doesn't mean so much to Israel, because we say one thing and we do another. I digress. Ruben Navarrette Jr., good to have you on. We'll do it again down the road, sir. All the best to you.
Take care. Love you, brother. Bye-bye.
Love you back, man. When we come forward, a conversation with Ben Crump on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish,
minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us. It's March 25th. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest from the Black Information Network. New York City Mayor Eric Adams called off his trip to the U.S.-Mexico border over safety concerns. The African-American mayor was due to leave Saturday to visit the border in Texas to meet with humanitarian leaders, with a spokesperson for New York City Hall saying safety concerns in one of the cities are the reason for the pause. The head of Boeing will be stepping down at the end of the year. It comes after several incidents involving Boeing aircraft, including a door panel blowing out on an Alaska Airlines operated flight in January. The announcement comes along with word that several other senior leaders have also decided to part ways with Boeing. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Turn your tax refund into a new ride at Nissan of Mission Hills and Gardena Nissan. Find a huge selection with over 1,000 vehicles in stock. Lease a new 2023 Rogue SV at $195 a month. Plus, lifetime oil changes on any new Nissan purchased there.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC and UCLA are back on the court tonight in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Both are at home for second-round games. UCLA takes on Creighton, 5:30 tip-off on ESPN2. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 to face defending national champion LSU in the Albany Regional. USC and Juju Watkins play Kansas tonight. Another sellout crowd is expected at the Galen Center, 7 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 in the Portland Regional. Arizona is the only Pac-12 conference team left in the NCAA men's tournament. Arizona has a Sweet 16 matchup Thursday night against Clemson at Crypto.com. Crypto is the site of the West Regional Finals. The Clippers are expecting to have Russell Westbrook back for tonight's home game against Indiana. Westbrook missed the last 12 games with a broken left hand. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Staples Print Big Sale means the more you print, the more you save. Get $20 off your print purchase of 100 or more, $50 off your print purchase of 200 or more, and $100 off your print purchase of 300 or more. Offer ends 4/6. See staples.com/print for details. Print more, save more at Staples.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over. And if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your black. Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
I've always believed that the shorter the introduction, the more important you are. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pope. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Crump. Ben, how are you, sir?
I'm good, my leader. How you doing?
Man,
Tavis,
I'm sorry. You first. Go ahead.
Nah, I was just going to say, you're very kind as always, and thank you for allowing me to be on your program, brother. You always speak truth to power.
No, you are the man, and I meant what I said. The more important you are, the shorter the intro. I ain't got to say nothing other than Ben Crump, and I'm always delighted, humbled, and honored after all these decades to still be his friend, to be in his friend circle, and to have him on this program. I got a little bit of time. You got a little bit of time. You're the busy one, and I got a lot to cover with you. Let me just start with this. I was just talking about the fact, in case you have not heard, those who may have just tuned in to hear Ben Crump, there is some breaking news, of course, in the UN Security Council. They just passed, finally, an immediate ceasefire resolution with the U.S. abstaining. We'll talk more about that later. But there's also news in Donald Trump's fraud case in New York City. The appellate court has ruled, a 5-judge panel, that he can reduce his $454 million penalty down to $175 million. From $454 to $175. His lawyers told us a week ago he could not meet that threshold of $454. Today, this 5-judge panel drops that judgment down to $175, and Donald Trump does, in fact, have the resources to do that, and they've given him 10 days to do it. So expect, once again, that Donald Trump has escaped, and he'll post that $175 bond, move on with his appeal, but once again, he has wiggled himself out of another tight spot. We did the math, Ben Crump, during the break that I just went through. Donald Trump just got a 68% reduction in his fine. A 68% reduction. Have you ever had a client, a black client, that got a 68% reduction in a fine, Ben Crump? I ask you, sir.
Tavis Smiley, we've never had a black client even get time like they are giving the past president to be able to sort out his affairs. I mean, think about it, Tavis Smiley. This is a man who has been found by courts to have inflated the value of his assets.
Mm-hmm.
So how can he do a public offering when you have that much lack of credibility? They wouldn't let you do it. They wouldn't let me do it. But it seems that, the courts that he appointed other judges to are returning the gratitude for such appointments, and it underscores that elections do matter, and that we have to make sure that we don't let him get back in office, because the court had 3 Supreme Court justices. He appointed more federal judges than Obama in 8 years than he did in 3 years. And so what it tells us is, man, these judges are going to be at his beck and call. Yeah. And so the only way we're going to stop this guy is we got to stop him in November. Other than that, the courts would not save us. And that's what, you and I talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
We got to fight in the court of law and the court of public opinion. The courts have never been friendly for black people, we always get the most of injustice and the least of justice, and it's the reverse of that when it's rich white men like Donald Trump. They get the most of justice and the least of injustice.
Yep, a 68% reduction in his fine. Go figure. It's a good news, bad news day for Donald Trump, and I was just saying to Miles, my board op, that only Donald Trump can give you two major breaking news stories in the same hour. I'm just in the first hour of my 3-hour show today, and there's already two pieces of breaking news. So the first, you just heard Ben Crump and I discussing, and I want to get to his documentary and the cases he's working on. Forget Donald Trump. But I can't forget Donald Trump because there's more breaking news. So a 68% reduction in his fine in that case. Now comes news. That's the good news for Donald Trump. The bad news is that Donald Trump's Manhattan criminal trial on charges that he hid a sex scandal will start on April 15th. A judge just now refused to delay it. This is the case being brought by Alvin Bragg. I mean, imagine now, these are sisters and brothers in these cases. The case that Ben and I just discussed about the fraud case was brought by the sister AG Letitia James. The brother AD, the brother DA, rather, in Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, brought this case, and Donald Trump's lawyers have been trying to get this case delayed, and the judge has refused to buy the argument that the prosecutors are engaging in misconduct. He says that Trump's lawyers have not substantiated their allegations, and this trial will, in fact, start on April 15th. Trump's lawyers failed in an effort to get this particular case delayed. So, Ben Crump, that suggests at least one of these cases is going to move forward a bit more swiftly than Trump wanted. And what people are looking for is a conviction anywhere on anything, Ben Crump, on something.
No, certainly. And what it tells me, Tavis Smiley, is once again, black people are going to have to save them for America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just a threat to what he's going to do to members of the BIPOC community. I mean, this is going to be an assault on democracy if he gets into the White House. I mean, think about it. It was hard dealing with him trying to be somewhat measured, knowing that he was seeking office in 2020. But if he goes back into office in 2024, I mean, he's going to have no holds barred in his attack on democracy, attack on black people, attack on brown people, attack on anything except rich white men.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. Ben Crump makes a powerful point. I made it before. And when we come forward, I want to give Ben the rest of the time to talk about the cases he's working on. I want to get some updates. Of course, Ben Crump has so many cases. We couldn't update him if I had all day. But there are 3 or 4 major ones I want to get his update on. And we'll talk, of course, about his new documentary called How to Sue the Klan. March is Women's History Month. In this case, this documentary looks at a case involving 5 courageous black women who stepped up to sue the Klan. Only Ben Crump can bring it to you as a documentary that he's produced. We'll talk about that. But again, Ben makes a powerful point a moment ago about black folk saving democracy. I've said this before, and Ben and I are simpatico on this. Remember now, it was a black man named Benny Thompson out of Mississippi who chaired that January 6th insurrection hearing. The January 6th insurrection hearings were chaired by him. Had it not been for Benny Thompson's committee, then Merrick Garland, who was moving way too slow for me, might never have moved. But a black man chaired that committee. And then you've got Fonnie Willis as the DA in Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. And then you've got Letitia James, the sister AG in New York. And now you got Alvin Bragg, the brother DA in Manhattan County. Don't tell me what black folk can't do when we get a chance to be in charge of metering out justice. And again, we're doing it as it ought to be done, in a fair, just, and honorable way, unlike the way other folk do when they have control. I digress on that for now. More Ben Crump when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce.
This election year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the place for politics. Unapologetically progressive politics. And we've got two of the best and brightest to help you cut through all the noise. Weekdays at 1 p.m., it's A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte. And at 4 p.m., it's Areva Martin in Real Time. He's the university professor and distinguished member of the White House Correspondents Association. She's a best-selling author and Harvard-trained civil rights lawyer. And they are both here every day to help guide you through all the this year, because you know it's going to get deep. Get your politics on weekday afternoons at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. with A More Perfect Union, hosted by Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte and Areva Martin in Real Time, only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your flag.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm watching my time, Ben Crump. I want to make sure that we cover a few more pieces of important information here, and I want to start with you telling me and us about this documentary, How to Sue the Klan. Take it away, Ben Crump.
Thank you, Tavis. This is a story that needs to be told because, once again, it's about regular, ordinary black women, extraordinary things. In 1980, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the members of the Ku Klux Klan decided they were going to go into the black community and they were going to shoot black people. And on that Friday night, they shot 5 elderly black women who miraculously all survived. And the criminal justice system did what it normally does to black people. It eludes us. They got a slap on the wrist. Most of them didn't get charged with anything. One of them got 4 months in county jail. That's it. And so these black women would not let that be the end of the story, Smiley. And it's something just unheard of at the time in 1980, Tennessee, in the South. They had the courage to sue the Ku Klux Klan in a civil action using the little-known KKK law from 1883. And miraculously, they prevailed and bankrupted the Ku Klux Klan and set the precedent for how we are to fight hate. And these black women, the Chattanooga 5, the story is so inspirational. And it's sad that they all, well, we could give them their flowers, but now a new generation of social justice warriors can hear how these 5 black women gave us a precedent to fight the hate that we're seeing today throughout the country.
Yeah, it's funny, but not funny at all. But you take my point. Only 5 black women could be shot by the Klan, and all 5 of them survived. That alone just speaks to the resiliency of black women. All 5 of them shot, and they all survived. Yeah. And Ben Crump is now telling their story in this documentary called "How to Sue the Klan." I'm watching my time. You're also working on you've been working on this for a long time, though. The Tennessee legislature has passed legislation that rolls back ordinances passed in the wake of the Tyree Nichols death. We know about in Memphis. The governor can either sign or veto this legislation in the coming days. What are your thoughts on that, Ben Crump?
Hey, it is overt discrimination against black people. It's open season, like I write about in the book. And so we got to engage in strategic science to these attempts at intellectual justification of discrimination. Memphis, a predominantly black city, after the brutal beating and killing of Harvey Nichols, passed a law to try to stop these pretextual stops, violating the Fourth Amendment, where the state of Tennessee, that's controlled by the Republicans and a supermajority Senate, said, we don't care what you Negroes do down there in Memphis because we control the state. And state law trumps local law. And so they didn't sign the bill saying that the police won't be bound by any local ordinances that are provided to them by state law. So it's a tug of war, and I think the governor, regrettably, who's a Trumper, is going to do what they do. They're going to try at every point to put us in our place, Tavis Smiley. And so we got to be like our ancestors and say, we will never go quietly into the night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just sad that, to your point, that they can just, the legislature is so powerfully Republican in Tennessee, they can ignore these local ordinances, trying to hold these officers accountable. It is sick, it's sad, and to your point, we have to stand firm as our ancestors did. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Ben Crump, three other things we'll get a quick take on. His case involving Jerome Stevenson, this in-custody death in Louisiana. We'll get his take on what he posted earlier today about how House Republicans are trying to punish medical schools with the DE&I programs. And one of my favorite cases that he's in charge of, I'm still waiting on the result, the Henrietta Lacks case. We'll get Ben's take on those three things in the few moments we have left when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Ben Crump coming your way right now. I got less than 5 minutes and see how much ground we can cover in these 5 minutes. First of all, Ben Crump, update me, if you will, on the Jerome Stevenson in custody death case in Louisiana.
And I know it's rapid fire. The warden allegedly sent a text message to his jailer who had an altercation with Jerome Stevens, showed his picture, said, "Is this the BITCH?" The text said yes. He said, "Well, we already pulled him from his cell, and you know what happens next? The next day, he is found literally beaten to death. Blunt force trauma to the head, neck, stomach. Just horrific beating." And so the courageousness of his white mother and I actually turned the text message over to my investigators. So we fight for justice for Jerome Stevens like we fight for so many others. What you got next, Tavis?
Next on my list is your post today. As you know, I follow you. We all follow you. And you posted today. I have a major conversation coming up on this program about this for the hour. But I was fascinated by your post today. House Republicans want to punish medical schools with DE&I programs. You are based, as we all know, in Florida. And so much of this mess is coming out of Florida and Ron DeSantis and all his ilk down there. But what do you make of them going after medical schools now with DEI programs?
Hey, it's just like stand your ground laws that started in Florida. And once it got through Florida, all these other conservative, very Republican-dominated states followed suit. And so that's what's happening. I mean, when you think about the fact that the Fearless Fund, who women, and then how they are using the law now to attack these black women, using the 1861 law that gave blacks the right to enter contracts, Tavis Smiley, because before the Civil War, blacks could not legally enter contracts with white people. So they passed a law saying you can't consider race. And so now they're saying, oh, you black women raised $100 million to help black women. Y'all considering race. That's illegal. That's unconstitutional. And it's just ludicrous what they're trying to do to use the things that were supposed to give black people opportunities, equal opportunities. They're trying to use it now to oppress us. And that's what's happening with this DEI and medical schools. They want to attack everything that's DEI, everything that's supportive of black culture, of black history. They're attacking our black literature. And if we're not careful, the next thing they're going to attack is our historically black colleges and universities.
No, from you speaking truth to power, and to the powerless for that matter, and that's exactly where this is headed. I'm glad to hear you call it out the way you did. In the 60 seconds I have left, I know you can't say much about it. You never can, but I'm gonna keep asking you about it because I'm waiting on this one, man. The Henrietta Lacks case. How is that coming along, Ben Crump?
Hey, we got the second corporation. We having a motion to dismiss here. We should get an answer back by May. And just know this, Tavis Smiley, as long as you and I keep talking about it, brother, and everybody get vaccines and medicines, and her HeLa cells keep reproducing every 24 hours, Henrietta lives. That's the name of the documentary that they're making on this legal case, this landmark legal case. It's called Henrietta Lives.
Yep. I am waiting, as I've said to Ben many times. My sense is it's going to be the largest settlement in the history of this country, given all that they have done to misuse those HeLa cells, those cells of Henrietta Lacks, and no better person than Ben Crump to be on the case. Ben, thank you for these 30 minutes. I know how busy you are, man, but I love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. All the best to you, my friend.
I love you, Tavis. And again, I can't say enough. When you speak truth to power, it raises my spirit and the spirits of black America.
My friend Ben Crump. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us. It's March 25th. I'm Mike Air was due to leave Saturday to visit the border in Texas to meet